For nearly 20 years, Bernie Madoff was one of the most respected men on Wall Street. He was the former chairman of the NASDAQ stock exchange. His firm was one of the largest market makers in America. Celebrities, banks, charities, and pension funds all begged to invest their money with him. Not everyone was accepted. Being a Madoff investor was considered a privilege, and for 20 years his returns were extraordinary, consistent, reliable. Year after year, in bull markets and bear markets alike, Madoff's clients made money. There was just one problem. None of it was real. Not a single trade, not a single return, not a single dollar of profit. For 20 years, Bernie Madoff ran the largest financial fraud in human history. $65 billion. Stolen from 4,800 clients across 136 countries. And the most terrifying part? He almost got away with it. The making of a legend. Bernie Madoff was born in Queens, New York in 1938. He grew up in a middle-class Jewish neighborhood and put himself through college working as a lifeguard and sprinkler installer. In 1960, with $5,000 he had saved from those jobs, he founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities. He was 22 years old. The timing was perfect. Wall Street in the 1960s was still largely a closed club, dominated by old money, old families, and old relationships. Madoff was an outsider, so he did what every smart outsider does. He found an edge. While the big firms were still trading stocks by hand, Madoff invested in early computer technology to automate his trades. His system was faster, cheaper, and more efficient than anything on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. The technology he built with his brother Peter was so advanced that it eventually became the foundation for the NASDAQ exchange itself, the world's first electronic stock market. By the 1990s, Madoff's firm was the sixth largest market maker in S&P 500 stocks. He served as NASDAQ's chairman in 1990, 1991, and 1993. He was not just respected on Wall Street, he was Wall Street. But alongside his legitimate brokerage business, Madoff was quietly building something else entirely: a secret floor. His firm occupied the 17th, 18th, and 19th floors of the Lipstick Building in Manhattan. The 18th and 19th floors were the legitimate brokerage operation, busy, visible, full of traders and analysts. But the 17th floor was different. Restricted access, separate entrance, a skeleton crew of loyal employees who had been with Madoff for decades. It was from the 17th floor that Madoff ran his wealth management business, and it was from the 17th floor that he ran his fraud. The perfect lie. The scheme itself was almost embarrassingly simple. Madoff told clients he was using a sophisticated investment strategy called the split strike conversion, buying stocks while simultaneously purchasing options to protect against losses. It sounded technical enough to satisfy most investors without being so complex they'd ask too many questions. In reality, he wasn't investing anything. When clients gave Madoff their money, he deposited it directly into a single account at Chase Manhattan Bank. When clients wanted returns, he paid them using money from new investors. When clients wanted to withdraw, he paid them using money from other clients. Classic Ponzi scheme. Named after Charles Ponzi, an Italian immigrant who ran a similar scam in the 1920s. The principle is simple. As long as money keeps flowing in, you can always pay money flowing out. The moment inflows stop, the whole thing collapses. What made Madoff's version extraordinary was three things. First, exclusivity. Madoff made his fund difficult to join. You needed an introduction. You needed the right connections. Being accepted as a Madoff investor felt like being let into a secret club. That exclusivity made people trust him more, not less. If it was a scam, surely they wouldn't make it so hard to join. Second, consistency. Madoff's returns were never spectacular. He didn't promise to double your money overnight. He promised steady, reliable returns of around 10 to 12% per year in every market condition. That consistency was actually a red flag. No legitimate investment strategy produces perfectly smooth returns, regardless of what the market does. But to most investors, it felt like reassurance. Third, reputation. Madoff wasn't some unknown fraudster operating out of a back office. He was the former chairman of NASDAQ. His name opened every door on Wall Street. When Madoff vouched for an investment, people believed it without question. The victims weren't naive people. They were sophisticated investors, major banks, hedge funds, universities, and charities. Among them, director Steven Spielberg, actor Kevin Bacon and his wife, the owner of the New York Mets, dozens of charitable foundations that lost everything overnight. The man who knew here is the most infuriating part of the Bernie Madoff story. Someone knew. His name was Harry Markopolos, a financial analyst from Boston who first heard about Madoff's fund in 1999. His boss asked him to reverse engineer Madoff's investment strategy so their firm could replicate the returns. Markopolos sat down with the numbers. Within 4 hours, he had his conclusion. It was mathematically impossible. No legitimate investment strategy could produce Madoff's returns with Madoff's consistency across the range of market conditions he had experienced. The numbers didn't add up. They couldn't add up. It was either a Ponzi scheme or something illegal involving front-running, trading on inside information. Markopolos went to the Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC is the federal agency responsible for policing financial fraud. He handed them a detailed report. He explained exactly what Madoff was doing and why the numbers proved it was fraud. The SEC investigated and found nothing. Not because Madoff was clever enough to hide it, but because the investigators didn't know what they were looking at. They checked the wrong records. They asked the wrong questions. They accepted Madoff's explanations without verification. Markopolos went back to the SEC in 2001. Then again in 2005 with an even more detailed report titled simply, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." He submitted 29 red flags. He begged them to check Madoff's trading records with the Depository Trust Company, the organization that records every actual stock trade made in America. They never checked. Madoff himself later said from prison, and these are his exact words, "They never even looked at my stock records. It would have been easy for them to see." The fraud continued for another 3 years. The collapse. In 2008, the financial crisis hit. For a Ponzi scheme, a financial crisis is a death sentence. When markets crash, investors panic and demand their money back simultaneously. The inflows that keep the scheme running dry up overnight, and the outflows become impossible to meet. By November 2008, Madoff was receiving $7 billion in withdrawal requests he could not fulfill. He had roughly $230 million left in the account. He was out of options. On the evening of December 9, 2008, Madoff called his 2 sons, Mark and Andrew, into his apartment. His wife Ruth sat nearby, and he told them the truth. Everything was a lie. The entire investment business, every trade statement, every return, every dollar of profit, all fabricated for decades. His exact words to his sons were that it was one big lie. His sons were not part of the scheme. The following morning, they went to their attorney. That afternoon, they reported their father to federal authorities. On December 11, 2008, FBI agents arrived at Madoff's apartment. One of them asked if there was an innocent explanation for what had happened. Madoff said no. There was no innocent explanation. He was arrested on the spot. He was 70 years old. In March 2009, Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal felonies. In June 2009, he was sentenced to 150 years in prison, the maximum allowed. The judge said the sentence was meant to send a message. The damage was staggering. Prosecutors estimated the fraud at $64.8 billion. $18 billion of that was money investors had actually deposited and never recovered. The rest was fictitious profit that had never existed at all. Madoff died in prison in April 2021 at the age of 82. In December 2024, 16 years after his arrest, the Department of Justice made its final distribution to victims. Almost 41,000 victims across 127 countries received a combined $4.3 billion. roughly 94 cents for every dollar of their proven losses. What Bernie Madoff teaches us. Bernie Madoff's story is often told as a story about greed, about a criminal mastermind who outsmarted the system. But that's not the real lesson. The real lesson is about trust, and what happens when institutions built to protect that trust fail completely. Harry Markopolos submitted evidence of the world's largest financial fraud to the SEC 5 times over 8 years. 5 times the most powerful financial regulator in the world looked at the evidence and did nothing. Madoff himself said he could have been caught in 2003. The tools to catch him existed. The laws existed. The regulator existed. What didn't exist was the competence, the urgency, or the will to actually look. The victims of Bernie Madoff weren't defeated by a criminal genius. They were defeated by a regulatory system that confused reputation with integrity, that mistook complexity for legitimacy, and that trusted the people it was supposed to be watching. The second lesson is about exclusivity as a weapon. Madoff understood that making something hard to access makes people want it more and question it less. The investors who begged to get into Madoff's fund were so focused on the privilege of being accepted that they never stopped to ask whether what they were being offered was actually real. Whenever something seems too exclusive, too consistent, and too good to be true, it is. Madoff spent 20 years building a reputation so powerful that it became a shield. A reminder that in finance, as in life, the most dangerous frauds are the ones committed by people you already trust. That's the Collapse Files. A new documentary drops every day. Businesses built, broken, and buried. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss tomorrow's story.